Okay, here we are, live.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, you got you probably. I mean, this is the thing with this thing is I'm not gonna edit any of this. We're just gonna talk because this is radio, on the internet. Uh,
Internet radio. That's
internet
where it's at. So
radio. This was gonna be
internet
the.
radio is
This was
the
gonna be the.
future of radio.
Yeah, exactly. It was. I mean, I feel like Yahoo Radio had a big presence in like the late '90s, and it just didn't go anywhere. Um, Understandably, because the whole thing with the internet is being asynchronous, not having to show up when other people want to do things. But anyway, hi Matt.
Hi, Jason.
This is for those of you not listening live. Like if you're listening live, then you have, which we know nobody is because I see zero viewers. You can see a little title thing. This is Back of the Bullpen Season 2, Episode 2. If you're not listening live, then now that is your. Well, you probably downloaded this and it's probably on your phone and it probably says Back of the Bullpen Season 2, Episode 2. So you know what you're listening to. Why do podcasts like introduce like this is the Back of the Bullpen? They know what they're listening to, right? I mean, do people shuffle their podcasts?
Boy, that would be weird. I've never
That
done.
would be odd.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's only for the first time you hear it. You know.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you could be
After that, it
listening
just
on
gets
a road
redundant.
trip or something, and you don't want to look at your phone to see what's up next, and people just start talking. You don't know what you're listening to. But I think it's a relic from radio, where there's no display. There's just you're just on your dial, and you don't know. You don't know that this is car talk, or if this is wait, don't tell me. You can't tell the difference between those unless they tell you.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have
So
to be force-fed that information.
right, exactly. Speaking of force feeding, I have cat mascots with me here. Do you have any mascots on the podcast tonight?
No, I've locked out my one mascot because he's insistent on having a fourth dinner, and I know what happens to that fourth dinner. It comes back, and
Huh.
then I get to clean it. So
I feel like your kids should be old enough not to need fourth dinner at this point,
yeah, they should be.
and especially not to just like throw up on the floor
Yeah.
and make you clean it. Um, so let's talk about the only news that happened this week, as far as we're able to recall or divine, is James Shields signing with the San Diego Padres for 4 years, $75 million. It has a I guess I'm looking at the baseball prospectus thing. I hadn't actually read much about the details of the deal. It's only $10 million this year,
Yep.
and that is presumably to help them with the fact that they went on a massive splurge, and suddenly all of have to pay Matt Kemp and also Yangervis Solarte, and they wouldn't otherwise. I don't know. In any event, so they have 10 million, but then it bumps up to 21 million over the next 3 years, and then there's a club option for 2019. It's got a pretty cheap buyout. On the other hand, it's a pretty cheap option as these things go. 16 million. He'll be in his mid 30s at that point.
Late 30s.
Oh yeah, mid to late, depending on Look, we're getting to be that age,
Oh, yeah.
so let's call it the mid 30s, in my opinion.
I'll go with the late 20s if you want.
Yeah, okay, let's call it the teens. He'll be in his teens, and thus will be a great bargain.
I hope there's a diaper changing clause in the last year of his contract.
I know he's got a hotel suite on the road for the first 3 years and a diaper change in the last two.
That's right, yes. The manager has to change his diapers.
Poor Bud Black. He
Yeah.
gets no respect at all. Is he even still the manager? That's how little respect he gets. I'm not actually sure. They could have fired him, and I'm really not. Or he could have been. I feel like he's either fired or he's the second longest tenured manager in baseball or something. No, he's currently the manager.
He's the manager, but I don't. Yeah, he's been there a long time. I don't know. I don't know about managerial tenure rankings, but I know
His real name is Harry Ralston. Harry Ralston Black. I mean, he's basically had the job as long as Bruce Bochy because he replaced Bruce Bochy when Bochy left. And I know that Sosha has had his job longer than either of them. But besides Scioscia, I don't know if anybody's ahead of Black and Bochy.
I think Sosa
Now,
is the longest tenured manager now that you mention it, and he's on a 10-year contract. People don't talk
yeah,
about
it's
that.
insane
They gave him
for
a
a manager.
deal. Like, I like that the idea of like an 8 or 9 year contract was not enough. That was not going to get it done. It was like, no, sorry, 10. All right, fine, I'll sign.
It's a round number. I mean, that's the thing. If you're the team and you offer 8 and he goes 10, you're like, fuck it, let's round up, give him 10.
Just give it.
Like if you're giving him 8, you may
Mhm.
as well. A player is different, right? Like a player, like Albert Pujols asked for those extra 2 years. You should probably think the Angels also did not. The Angels also gave him 10 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
The 10 years
but
is the standard.
Scioscia, it's like, you know what, 10 years, 8 years from now, if we don't want him to be around, we can pay those dollars that we've locked him into. I wonder how much escalation there is in his salaries, or if this is like one of these arbitration avoidance deals, and he's making what he made in like 1999 right now.
That's a good question, and I'm in no way prepared to answer that.
And like
But I am looking it up. I'm looking it up.
manager salaries are slightly more public, I think, than general manager salaries, and then but
Yeah.
they're both way way less public than player salaries. All of which, I mean, it's a little it's a little gross that we know what these people make.
Switch just
So
signed.
MLB Trade Rumors says that Scioscia is making about starting next year is making 6 million a
Right,
year for
right.
the next 3 years.
That's the end of the contract. Actually, the 10-year deal is up after 2018.
Yeah.
And
So he's probably
he can
making
opt
4 or 5 now.
He can opt out after this year.
Huh.
So
That's I
the
don't
Cubs
know.
may have a new manager at the beginning of next year.
Yeah. I I, I
That was a bad joke. It was
That's
very
why
obvious
I,
bad
I
joke.
really didn't know where to go.
Yeah, no,
I
it's a
I apologize. I kind of stepped on it by not
no,
reacting
it was a
well.
humor cul-de-sac. It needed to not be driven down, and I did it anyway.
Um, so I guess there's questions we could ask, right? I assume that Shields had a qualifying offer from the Royals. I don't
Oh
actually
yeah.
remember.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So that, I mean, presumably, he would have had a few more offers earlier in the offseason, and he might have gotten, even though he's going to be 33 this year, maybe he gets 5 or 6 years, and can wrangle a 9-figure deal out instead of 475. 475, you see, it seemed pretty low for, what would you call him, the second best pitcher on the market behind Lester, just in talent,
No,
not in.
Scherzer, Scherzer was better than him.
Oh, Scherzer. I'm sorry, I forgot Scherzer. You're
Yeah.
right. Yeah, okay. So third best pitcher on the market. The only pitcher on the market who's thrown, well over 200 innings, or over 200 innings for the last, what does that add up to? 8 years, and well over for 7 of those 8 years.
Right.
Hasn't missed a start since, like, I mean, 2006. I think he's called up at some point in 2006. I don't think he's ever missed a start. Has he ever missed a start?
Shields?
Well, 2006, he had a thigh cramp that caused him to miss 6 games. And so 6 games, that's going to be a start. So yeah, a thigh cramp in 2006. That's his injury history.
That's rough.
Yeah. So I mean, if you have an opinion about the value to the Padres of the contract, I would happily listen to it, because I don't think I have one.
Uh, yeah, I mean, well, they've got, they picked up some big time salary by adding the players they added. I mean, Justin Upton is making almost $15 million this year, and he's a free agent next year, so that money, stops after this season. But they picked up Matt Kemp, and the Dodgers are paying a significant portion, I believe, of it this year. I'm not exactly sure how it works, the payout, but they're Kemp is making 21, almost $22 million, sort of in perpetuity up through 2019, and the Padres are on the hook for a significant portion of that. I don't think they're not on the hook for all of it.
Yeah, I think this story says the Dodgers are going to pay 18 million this year,
Yeah, and then
and
think 3.5 million each of the
Yeah,
next
yeah. So a
four
very,
seasons.
very small portion going forward.
Yeah, and so they
It's
get Kemp
interesting.
for
They
nothing this year, and then after that they're sort of halfway.
backloaded so much of Shields' deal. I mean, I wonder if they think. I don't know what the Padres' financial situation is, but they seem to have added relatively little salary this year, but perfectly willing to take on a bunch more in 2016, unless they're just going to trade everybody in 2016. They're going to pull Marlins.
Well, that's the interesting thing about it. I mean, not that they're necessarily going to do that, but Shields has a Marlins type contract where there's a small amount of excuse me money being paid to him this year, and then after that, it escalates for the rest of the contract. 10 million, then 21, 21, 21. Shields also has a player opt out. I guess they're all player opt outs. It'd be great if there was a team opt out. Like, yeah, we're done with you. Um, but an opt out after 2 seasons. So at that point, the Padres would have paid him $31 million for his age 33 and 34 seasons, and then he would, presumably think that he could go somewhere else and make more than whatever it is, $44 million over the next 2 years, which is what he'll get if they don't pick up the team option. So I don't know. I mean, I tend to think that he wouldn't take that opt out just because that's a fair amount of money to make in that short period of time, and he'll already be 35 or 36 at some, but I think the structure is interesting, especially since they only have Upton this year. Kemp is as we said, they're paying him very little this year, but a lot more in the years to come. Ian Kennedy's gone next year. Carlos Quentin is gone next year. Um,
Carlos Clinton may be gone by opening day. I mean, they don't really have room for him.
yeah, but they're going to pay him.
Yeah, they probably have to pick up room if they're able to trade him. They'll probably have to, pay that salary.
Right. I mean, Will Myers is still making nothing, but the ARB years are coming soon, and at that point, player salaries start to escalate. Even if they're not very good, they still start to escalate. And presumably, the fact that Myers won the Rookie of the Year award and has some talent will actually make him relatively expensive, at least in terms of arbitration salaries. Um, I guess that's what I would say about the contract is that it's interesting the way that they've sort of kept costs down this season, so they could presumably afford things like like Quentin, like Ian Kennedy, like Justin Upton, and then those guys are gone next year, and so they may not be making any more big additions. This may be it, and they may even downsize after this season.
Yeah, no, that's it'll be interesting to see. I think what it's hard to tell. I mean, you add a new general manager, and they go through all of these changes. They've had what have they had 3 ownership changes in the last 7 years or something like that? Maybe
Yeah,
even I don't even know the exact number, but
they've had
um,
3 owners in the last 7 years, something like that.
yeah, and their TV situation is completely bollocksed up. And they've got a beautiful stadium in a good location, but it's also a relatively small city, and they don't have room to expand. Like the Red Sox just have, for instance, just to pick a team that is familiar to some of us, they have so much room around them. It doesn't really matter how big Boston is. San Diego, has Mexico to its south, like literally directly to its south,
Right.
and then you don't have to go very very far north before you're into Angels territory. And,
Yeah.
not I mean they're literal territory in terms of the division of TV broadcasting and all of that stuff, and that actually matters too, because you can only there's only so many places you can sell your TV package to, but also just building your fan base. You're not going to stretch. You're not going to steal Orange County
Right.
necessarily, or at least anything from like Irvine on up. Maybe you can get into southern Orange County. And in my experience, going sort of east, going inland. I'm not typically as far south as San Diego, but I see a lot of Angels hats inland, and I see a fair number of Dodgers hats.
Yeah.
I don't see Padres stuff outside of San Diego. Weirdly, you go to Phoenix, and I feel like I see a lot of Chargers stuff, and I see a lot of Cowboys stuff, even though they have a football team in Phoenix, but I don't see the equivalent for the baseball.
I
Like the
think
Padres don't really.
I think there's two things about that because I think you're right. One is the Dodgers are one of the premier franchises in baseball. I mean they have a tremendous fan base. And just because I think of the history, they were in LA first, et cetera, et cetera. And also they've done a fair amount of winning over the years. There's been some fallow periods, but but especially compared to the Padres, Padres have historically been just a terrible baseball team, and that's sort of where they've been recently too. I mean, I think if like the Royals, the Padres go on a run, they get to the series, or they get they get far into the playoffs this year, you'll probably start to see more Padres hats. I mean, people like winners, and they don't like losers very much.
Outside of there are exceptions. I
I
mean,
love losers, love them.
the Cubs built an entire culture around it being okay that they lost.
Yeah, that's
And
as long as you're drunk, it doesn't matter.
right. And I get, you go back, the Red Sox now have built a culture around, celebrating winning. I think for a long time it wasn't so much around losing, but around, falling just short, right? They kind of built that, built that as like the fan base's identity. We're fans of the team that doesn't quite get there, that hasn't quite managed to break that streak of not winning the World Series. That's a weird way to talk about a streak because 29 teams every year don't win the World Series, but whatever. We'll call it a streak if we want to call it a streak. But the Padres don't really, and I don't know I don't know what it is about them. I don't know if there's something inherently San Diego-y about this. It's a pretty, like, it's a good town. Like, you've been there, we've been there together. They have great beer. Pizza Port's a pretty cool chain, like good pizza and good beer. That's a fantastic idea. Why isn't that everywhere? But it's also, there's something sort of sleepy about it, and something also transient about it, I think, because of the military is such a big presence that you get a lot of people there who are there for 3 years, and while they're there, they're not going to become Padres fans and Chargers fans. Well, they don't have, back when the Clippers were there, they weren't going to become Clippers fans. They were going to be fans of their hometown. They grew up in Ohio. They're still Bengals fans and Reds fans.
Yeah, exactly. And I think DC is like that too. I mean, there's more affluence in DC, probably, or at least more in total number of people in the local area. But I think there is that transient element, certainly. But DC makes up for it because when you go south, there's no team until you hit Atlanta. So
right.
And if you go west, I don't think there's a team till you hit Cincinnati. So there's a lot of space there that for people to become Nationals fans. But I think you brought up a great point about the physical location of San Diego. If you go south, there's Mexico. If you go north, it's the Angels and the Dodgers. If you go west, it's the Pacific Ocean.
It is.
I mean, they're really boxed in. There's just not that many places for the fandom to expand.
Whales don't buy beer, as it turns out.
It's a shame. And they're missing out, those whales. Because beer is good. I have some right here. But not whales. I have beer here.
Oh. Well, forget it then.
Sorry to disappoint you. You thought this was the first podcast with a whale. But sadly, no. It's one of
actually
many
didn't. I thought there was a whale, but I would doubt that we would be the first podcast with a whale.
Oh. Okay.
It's sort of like I don't think Howard Stern was actually the first person to have a naked woman on radio. There has to have been a naked woman on radio before Howard Stern.
Probably. Well,
I can guarantee there's been a podcast with a whale.
Howard Stern is also not a woman, so whether he had his clothes on or not kind of doesn't matter.
By the way, depending on how you define west versus north, you kind of run into Pittsburgh and kind of Pittsburgh territory before you hit Cincinnati. But Pittsburgh kind of a jump north. If you go due west, then yeah, from
Yeah.
DC you kind of hit Cincinnati. This is the portion of the podcast where Jason looks at a map and reads the map to the audience.
it's it's
Eventually,
better
I'll
than
figure out how to do like a screen sharing thing, and I'll
yeah.
just show the map to the audience. That'll
Ooh,
be awesome
sure.
for the 5 that are actually listening, and the podcast listeners can just go fuck themselves with respect to the map.
I think
I hope
the
nobody's listening. What?
No, I don't think they. The part where Jason looks at a map is probably better than the part where we talk about Howard Stern naked. So,
Howard Stern wasn't naked. Well, actually, he might have been naked. I don't know. Has Howard Stern been naked on on his show?
I don't know.
He
I
had
don't
the
know. I
naked
haven't listened to
woman.
that in so long. It's been way too long. Well, not way too long. It's just been a long time.
So okay, so I guess with it established that the Padres are weird. Okay, so there's a podcast called Stuff to Blow Your Mind, and there's a tag called Whales. So they've had whales. There's Blinded by the Noise, Whales and Dolphins in a Noisy Ocean. Um, this podcast had a noise control engineer who contributed to the podcast. There's a podcast called Whale Track or Earth Ocean, and there's an episode called Whale Trackers. Anyway, so there's your whale portion of your podcast. But so with it established that the Padres are sleepy and weird and unfortunate, I guess it makes sense. Even if this is some kind of an overpay, it's one of those that makes sense, particularly in light of if you're going to go all in, go all in. Don't trade for Justin Upton and Matt Kemp and not sign Shields or Scherzer or Lester or somebody. I mean, I think you can understand Lester not coming because he signed, I think, before all these trades came together. It's a little reminiscent of at least one story of the Jason Worth signing, the whole got to make yourself credible for other people. And so you bring in Kemp and Upton, you convince a Shields who doesn't have, and this is his last, well, depending on what happens with the opt-out, but this is his big cash-in moment. He wants to make as much money as he can, but he'd also probably like to be on a team that wins. I mean, he came from kind of a winning culture in Tampa Bay, and then he went to one World Series in 2 years as a Royal, so he's kind of used to winning. I mean, he probably wouldn't want to sign with a team, even if they, money kind of rules all, I'm sure, to a certain, well, I'm going to say money rules all to a certain extent. That's a sensible thing to say. But, if somebody came with him 8 years and 150 million, I don't think he'd say, well, are you going to go to the World Series? But, given a couple of similar offers, but yeah, the Padres had to make themselves a team that looked like that could tell a James Shields, look, we're going to win. If we don't have you, we're going to be starting Josh Johnson in our rotation whenever he's back, and we're going to be starting Corey Lubke whenever he's back. And, if we do have you, then those guys are just extra guys to fill in.
Right.
And we've got a great pitching staff, and we've got a good starting lineup that has some real, that has tremendous upside potential. That's
a good way to put it.
Yeah, I don't remember whose quote that is. That might be Bill Simmons, actually, may have invented tremendous upside potential.
Oh, really?
But he might have been, I think he was mocking someone. I think he was mocking Hubie Brown. Hubie Brown? Whatever.
Yeah,
Hubie. Hubie Brown. Hubie Brooks?
Oh, maybe.
Hubie Brown. No, Hubie Brown, the former basketball coach and announcer. In any event, so yeah, there is tremendous upside potential, and you're able to sell a James Shields on that. That's a nice.
I think without Shields, you could look at the rotation and go, I mean, Tyson Ross is had a good year last year. He's been good the last couple seasons actually since coming over from Oakland. And
that trade may haunt me as an A's fan.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah. I'm surprised actually how bad Ian Kennedy's been the last couple of years. He was a little below average last year, 200 innings. I mean, right, fine for a fourth starter, I guess. It looks like he got, yeah.
He sort of took. Yeah, well,
He's
he
kind of surprising.
jumped forward last year. The ERA underperformed the FIP, as they
Yeah,
say, um, but
that is surprising.
which is unusual, I think, in a ballpark that suppresses everything. But he had the weirdly high BABIP. He's kind of stopped striking people out a little bit, or not
No, no,
stopped, but
no. He's got, wait, Kennedy?
well, like for a while, like he regained it last year.
Oh, uh-huh.
He'd kind of been trending down, and it maybe looked like, well, maybe he's not the Ian Kennedy that a couple of years ago we thought he might be, and then he jumped back up over to one per inning
Yeah,
last year. Now, on the other hand, the that jump may not have been anything other than matching league jump, which has been going from like 6 to 8 to 12 to 17 per nine over the last four
right,
years. But
right.
still, I think last year I would call last year encouraging,
Yeah.
particularly since he wasn't. He's not. He'll be 30 now. Pitchers age weirdly.
He's certainly not bad for a fourth starter. I mean, behind, you've got Shields and you've got Andrew Kashner, and you've got Ian, then you've got Tyson Ross, and then Kennedy as your fourth starter. I'm not sure who they have. Who's their fifth starter?
I mean, there's Brandon Moore. They signed Brandon Morrow or
Yeah, and
Morrow
Josh
or however you
Donaldson
say
too.
it.
I
And I
don't know if you
guess
want to count on
then
those
there's
guys.
other guys. There's your Casey Kellys and your Robbie. You're sort of young guys. You're young
But,
guys that they've been waiting on and just watching every single one of them have Tommy John surgery over the last
mhm.
couple of years. Like their Tommy, that is unfortunately the other story of the Padres in the last couple of years, right? I mean, one is overwhelming mediocrity that just fits so well with their color scheme, and the other is Tommy John surgery. Like they've just been they went to Costco and they went into the bin in the back and they just loaded up on Tommy John surgeries, and so they had extra, and so they were like, hey, you're not hurt, but let's give you one. So they just gave everybody a Tommy John surgery for Christmas. And everybody's grandpa does this,
Mhm.
and I didn't think the Padres were run by your grandpa, but apparently they are run by your grandpa because everybody got a Tommy John surgery. Like Oprah giving away cars, right?
That's
You get
that's
a
what I was
Tommy
going to
John,
go.
and you get
That's
a.
and you get a Tommy John surgery, and you get a Tommy John surgery.
I prefer the bees version of that gift though.
The bees?
Yeah, you've not seen the bees?
No.
All right, so Oprah Winfrey bees.
Uh,
Um, and let's find the images version of this, and let's go with no, that's not it. Oprah Winfrey. So everybody, Google along with me right now, unless you're driving. Um, if you are driving, please do not Google along. Um, but yeah, Oprah Winfrey bees GIF or GIF, depending on how you pronounce it, and I linked it to Matt, and Matt now has a link in his G chat.
I do.
Eventually, like I said, this would be cool. I wonder if Google Hangouts supports sharing, right? Isn't that great?
Yeah, that's funny. And then she does that
I,
little dance at the
yeah,
end.
exactly. The little, it's
Uh,
it's it's just like perfect.
I just a whole bunch of bees on you.
And the
Everybody's
audience is
so happy about
crying.
it.
Yeah,
Yay, bees!
yeah, exactly. When she does the little like jazz hands at the
Yeah, it's
very
like,
end.
bees, bees.
Oh, okay. That was the part of the podcast where we laugh at bees. But
Oh well, yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
Good internet radio, Jason. Good internet radio.
So okay, so I guess the really key question is, does this make the Padres, or I mean, forget not does this make, are the Padres better than the Dodgers? Is this
No, no,
what's the order we're going in here?
they're not better than the Dodgers. They might be better than the Giants. I think they're definitely in the in the discussion. I know that's some people's favorite term. They're in the discussion for the wild card. I mean, in the same way, actually, and it's interesting. In the same way that I think the Royals were in discussion of the wild card last year, before the season started. I think there's a number of different outcomes, within any season, given injuries, and some guys just hit a rut for whatever reason, and other guys find a new gear, and however that works out. Um, and I think if things go right for the Padres, they could absolutely be bees. They could be in the in the in the wild card, but I think a lot has to go wrong for the Dodgers before things get to the point where the Padres are better. I mean, you might be able to speak to this better than me. Like, one of the things that I'm a little unclear on with the Padres is how good their defense is going to be.
Right.
They're going to have Will Myers in center field.
Yeah, he's not. Yeah.
And it's a big center field. I mean, they have a big outfield.
Right.
At Petco, and they got Matt Kemp in the outfield, who, I mean, playing him in center field was a joke, but he's not a very good outfielder at this point.
Right.
I think,
as most people with two arthritic hips aren't.
Right. Right. Yeah.
It's nothing against Matt Kemp. It's just his body.
It seems like he can hit, so there's that. And hopefully he'll provide enough. Hopefully for them, he'll provide enough. Force with his offense that'll make it worth it. But and then the infield. You got Alonso at first, and I don't know, it was Jed Gorko. I don't know much about his defense at all, I'll be honest.
I'm trying to remember what his reputation is. I feel like it's not good. I feel like in the past, the story on as I recall, it is hilariously pronounced Jerko.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. So like you could just go, get the hell out of here, Jerko. It's just like the perfect, you're not making fun of him. That's just his name.
That's it. Right.
Like the Baseball Prospectus fielding numbers don't love him, don't hate him, but not really an asset. And as I recall, I think he was kind of a bat prospect, and it was like, well, we'll figure out a place for him where he can't kill us on defense. So that's Jerko. To the extent that anybody believes in any defensive numbers at this point in baseball internet fandom.
That's the tough. They don't. Fangraphs doesn't like Jerko either, and they don't like Solarte, and apparently Andrew Kashner's a mediocre pitcher at fielding. That's kind of good.
Yeah.
And Alonso, it looks like. I mean, if you're just looking at Fangraphs numbers, it looks like there's Emerista, who according to this is a slightly above average defensive shortstop, and then everyone else is just kind of And they're losing Headley, so that's a step down at third base, almost regardless of who you put there. And then, I think that it's very possible the defense in the outfield will just be horrendous.
Right.
They'll have some strikeouts, with that pitching staff. But there's a lot of ground to cover on that field. I don't know. That's going to be one of the interesting things. I mean, are these pitchers just going to get BABIP to death? I think those games will definitely happen, and it's just a question of maybe how much they happen. It'll definitely be interesting, and I think another thing that will be interesting to watch is, will the Padres be able to make additions in season to improve the team? I mean, my guess is if they're, in contention, there will definitely be places that they're going to want to upgrade if they're going to try to make the playoffs. And they should.
Particularly sort of third base is kind of one obvious place. Shortstop, another. The infield in general, depending on what Jerko does. I mean, Jerko could, as I recall, he had a shitty year last year and was hurt. So the entire infield could be a place for them to look to improve.
Yeah, absolutely. So, he was Wow, Jerko, terrible. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know. Every time I look at slash lines on Padres, that's my instinct is just like I look at it and it looks horrible and I go, oh my gosh, this guy's terrible. And then I remember, oh, he plays for the Padres.
Right.
Like he's essentially trying to hit the ball through 350 feet of jello.
Yeah,
Uh,
Matt Kemp is going to slug like 380 this year, and we're all going to have to remember that that's amazing at
yeah, that's
Petco.
not bad at
That's
all,
like
right?
slugging 520 somewhere else.
It's I guess it's a way to keep arbitration salaries down.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, except that it makes you take a random starting pitcher, and
that's
you get your trade off.
that's interesting. So I mean, from that standpoint, maybe the way to improve this team, given all that we've just said, because clearly we're right, um, wasn't to spend 70 to 80 million dollars on James Shields, uh, but to spend that money on a Chase Headley. I mean, who got less than that, or on somebody else who can play shortstop or second base or first base. Um, not that
Yeah, if I have
not that I
to,
have a name in mind, I don't, but you
if
could find somebody good for that kind of money.
if we were flies on the walls of the front offices at Petco, I would assume that there were efforts to sign Headley, to sign, I don't remember which other infielders were even available this offseason. I mean, certainly by this point, you're
Sandoval.
looking at, you got Ricky Weeks getting two million with 2 million in incentives, and that's not an upgrade on Jed Jerko.
Yeah.
So at this point, yeah, sign Shields, but yeah, earlier in the offseason, I wouldn't be surprised if they were making runs at guys missing out, and then had to sort of do everything, and then just lost out on some things, and wound up making a bunch of trades instead, realizing that was going to have to be, because it's a lot easier to convince a general manager that you're offering him the best talent than it is to convince an agent to just and a player to sign with you, given
Yeah.
again what we've been talking about with their sort of lack of credibility about winning. And if you're unless you're a very top notch, like if you're signing an Albert Pujols deal, and it's you're signing a 10-year deal plus personal services contract or whatever, you don't care necessarily, unless you care about telling your grandkids how many homers you hit. You don't care about your numbers anymore.
Right.
But if you're a lesser player and you might have another contract after this, I mean, I think we know, you and I know, that general managers know about park effects, but I wonder what players' attitudes are about looking at Petco and going, am I really
Yeah.
going to hit 25 homers there? I don't think I'm going to hit 25 homers there, and that hurts me. Realistically, it might not hurt them at all, but and there's ego, and there's all sorts of things like that, and there's all-star voting. Like, all-star voting definitely gets affected by park, because a lot of fans are still not at the place where they fully understand. I mean, I think they'll discount a Colorado hitter and they'll discount a San Diego pitcher. But particularly outside of the super extremes, and outside of discounting good play, discounting players, I don't know that other players necessarily get bonus credit from those kinds of things. And I'm sure a player would love to be selected to the All-Star game. If nothing else, you get a bonus out of it. So,
Yeah. Right. Right.
so
Well, what
you
they
know,
what they could do is if they were to acquire a center fielder who could actually play the position, um, they could then move Will Myers to left or to right. Sorry, I assume Upton's playing left. Move Will Myers to right, and then put Kemp at first base. Not that he's ever played first base, but that might be the place he needs to be. Um, and
right,
then
and Alonso is not doing enough to stand in anybody's way at this point. I mean, he's what is it? Well, he's 28 this year.
yeah, and he's not very
And
good.
again, like, adjusting the numbers for Petco, like, they're not as bad as they look, but there's no real adjust.
Yeah.
Like if you
Yeah.
look at true average, the last 3 years, 275, 262, 254. 275 is not terrible for a 25-year-old, but it's not great for a first baseman,
Right.
regardless. And he's gone down from that, not up. So yeah, he's fallen from like, oh, big debut in Cincinnati
Yeah.
to kind of there's maybe room to grow to full-fledged disappointment, who could easily be benched at this point. So that I mean that would be another way to kind of rearrange and kind of help the infield at the same time.
Mhm.
I mean, I am always more. I'm more skeptical of moving guys to first base, than some people, I think, because I saw Mike Piazza try it, and I saw Mike. I mean, I saw him. He injured himself because he didn't know how to do it. Like he
Yeah.
reached into the baseline and got his arm knocked into and like tore a tendon in his wrist or something
Right.
along those
Yeah.
lines. I don't remember the exact sequence, but because he didn't know what the hell he was doing. It's not as bad as a shortstop who doesn't know what the hell he's doing. Try and imagine a shortstop or a second baseman in particular getting plowed into on a double play. But there's a cost, and I remember Will Carroll many years ago having at least claimed, and I don't know that I think he kept a lot of data to himself, but claimed that his data showed that there's an injury cost to position switching.
Yeah.
In terms of a percentage increase, basically an actuarial kind of thinking on this, and even to first base. Now, and Kemp's sort of problems are in his lower body, and he's not necessarily someone who's just sort of generically injury prone. So I don't know that he would be a particular risk, but it would be an interesting thing to see that, because I mean theoretically he's athletic enough to learn it. I mean, no, Mike Piazza is nobody's idea of a stellar athlete.
No, yeah, comparing Kemp to Piazza is a little iffy, but I'm with you. I think asking Kemp to change positions that drastically when he's not ever played it that way or played first base before certainly in the majors, is probably a tall order to execute effectively during the season. Um, so maybe that's something that you wait until next year to do. I mean, it's sort of like the Red Sox signed Hanley Ramirez, and they're moving him to left field, but he had all off season to train and to practice, and he's going to have all spring training to train and to practice. And there will still be road bumps, along the way. It's a big transition, even though it's an easier position. It's still completely different. So,
Right.
um,
Yeah, it's not moving from left field to right field. And learning the ball curves. You're looking at a left-handed hitter, and the ball's going to curve, the opposite way from what you're used to from a lefty. Yeah, it's short. I mean, you throw the ball differently in the outfield than you do in the infield. You can't do that sort of sidearm flip, the quick release anymore. And expect that to get you anywhere. And yeah, it's kind of interesting that it's all baseball, but the basic actions on defense can differ really really radically. I mean, you use a different glove. It's a different piece of equipment. That's kind of I mean, it wasn't always that way. That's a rise of specialization, and we have different gloves now. I mean, in the 1910s or whatever, I'm sure a third baseman would just walk out to left field with his same non-glove, his head.
right, just his hand. Yeah, just catch things with his
Yeah,
eye socket, which has no eye in it.
the human eyeball. Who's the player whose nickname is the human eyeball?
I don't know. That's from Stand By Me. I know one of the characters was named Eyeball, I think.
Oh, Briss Lord. That's his name. His name is his name is Briss. I don't know how his name is Briss Lord. He's like
Wow.
the he is the king. That's his full name. Oh, I always forgot. Then we're gonna turn into Cespedes Family Barbecue if we get into this too much. But his name is Bristol Robot Ham Lord.
What?
His middle name is Robot Ham. Uh,
No, it's not.
it is. Look him up. Briss, Bris, like the chopping of the penis.
Uh-huh.
He's the lord of all penis chopping.
Oh yeah.
in his shtetl.
He doesn't look like a robot ham.
No, he doesn't. But he is a robot ham, Bristol robot ham lord, and his nickname is the Human Eyeball. And furthermore, as I understand from Emma Span, who has been trying to track this down for like years, nobody's quite sure why he's nicknamed the Human Eyeball. There's not really a good source. There's speculation in terms of like, oh, he had a really good walk rate or whatever,
Mm.
which
Yeah.
he had an okay walk rate.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how his walk rate compares to other 1906 players. Or and you look at his picture that's on Baseball Reference, he doesn't look particularly eyeballish. His eyes aren't gigantic. His head doesn't look like an eyeball. So the human eyeball
Yes.
is
He
just
has an
like
eyeball in
this.
the back of his head, or maybe there's a giant eyeball in his chest, and you can't see it from the
That's
distance.
true. His shirt is on in this photo, as is his hat. So yeah, he might have like a third eye kind of thing going on.
Right?
But yeah, the Bristol Robot Ham Lord, the human eyeball. That's
How would you seriously pronounce that? Robotham?
yeah,
Robotham?
probably Robotham. Robotham. I don't know. It's very Britishy, right? Robotham.
Yeah, I guess so.
Robotham.
Where's
How I'm gonna how oh, I hit the wrong button. How do you pronounce robot ham? Understand why I'm asking about robot ham.
Hmm.
It's giving me absolute bullshit at the moment. I am
Yeah,
vamping, as they say. Pronounce names. Oh wait.
that's different than
Oh,
briefing.
Wikipedia has a sort of an alternative spelling that's ROW bot ham, so it's robot ham. Etymologically, it says it is robotum. I don't know what that means etymologically. It is
Whoa.
robotum. But
Okay.
yeah, so robotum might be, but that might just be where I think that's where the name comes from. Like, not that it is
Okay.
pronounced. Anyway, yeah. So there's a lot of robot hams out there. There's in fact there's currently variant forms. There is George Robot Ham, who is an American football player who just passed away in 2007, actually. And he,
So
after he
sad.
was a football player, he became
Robot.
a stuntman in Hollywood.
Oh wow.
He was in Batman, for instance.
Ooh.
Yeah.
You know
So
what's particularly interesting about Briss Lord being nicknamed the Human Eyeball is that his middle name was Robot Ham, and no one called him Robot Ham.
yeah. Well, robots didn't exist, right? They didn't have robots.
Oh, they didn't. That's
Yeah.
true.
I actually
Did
wonder.
they have ham?
Yeah,
Could ham
I
be
don't think
vegan?
they had ham either. It was all pork back then.
Oh my gosh, that's
I'm
it then.
Wikipediaing robot at this point.
Yeah, I'm still stuck on the Oprah Winfrey bees thing.
Yeah, the word robot was first used to denote fictional humanoid in a 1921 play by a Czech
Wow.
writer. So yeah, he Robot Ham was already retired by the time the word robot was used in the sort of human
Right.
usage.
Yeah,
So
that's a missed opportunity. That's what that is.
we have learned something. I feel like he would have changed his name if robots like you don't find. I mean, the only other robot ham that I found was is already passed away. So,
Yeah.
um, um, yeah. So that's the robot hams of the world. So I guess the I agree with you that a lot would have to go wrong for the Dodgers to kind of fall down to where the Padres are, or a ton would have to go right for the Padres, but probably still combined with things not going quite well for the Dodgers. Um,
Do you?
but
Can I throw a question at you?
you can try. I might bat it away.
Uh, is there anyone else you see in that entire? If I had to give you the Giants, or I mean, sorry, the Dodgers or the rest of that division, which would you take?
Wait, what?
If I were to give you the Giant or the I keep saying it wrong. If I were
Okay,
to
so
give
that's
you,
what confused me. You weren't saying Giants or Dodgers. You corrected yourself. So
yeah,
Dodgers, like, am I betting Dodgers or the field?
exactly.
Ooh, I mean, normally you bet the field, right? Like, all those suckers who were
I just
betting
mean, I just
the
mean the rest
Tiger
of the
Woods
NL West.
against the field in his heyday.
I just I just mean the in the NL West.
No, I know, I know. I mean, yeah, I mean, the Rockies are terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And the Diamondbacks appear to be on a better path overall, despite weird quotes by Dave Stewart. I trust what he's done so far more than I trust anything Kevin Towers did.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think they're there yet, given that their best pitcher is, I don't know, Ruby De La Rosa or Jeremy Hellick's. Like, they don't have any pitching. They've just got no pitching. And so they're kind of still building. You know, they're not in quite as hopeless a place as Colorado, because Colorado. So, I mean, I guess the best way I can say is that uh, the best summation I can give of where Colorado is that we asked David Roth to write the Colorado Rockies essay in this year's BP Annual, because, in our opinion, he is the king of the hopeless nowhere teams in terms of really wringing something out of them for an interesting essay. So yeah, we kind of see them. I see them, and I think Sam would agree in terms of that, and I think David agrees based on his essay, which everyone should read because it's great. That the Rockies are a hopeless nowhere team.
I
But
know the Diamondbacks might
the
even be
Giants have a
good.
weird way of being assholes and like defying expectation and doing all sorts of things. On the other hand, it's an odd year. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I refuse to not believe in that anymore. Like, they've just fuck it. They've convinced me that I have to be the sort of what's the word? Superstitious about all of this. On the other hand, they appear to still be counting to a certain extent on Tim Lincecum.
Yeah.
So I don't know what to think about that. Yeah, God, I hate to do this. It just sounds dumb to take the Dodgers, right? When you're giving me the possibility of the Padres or the Giants, and the possibility that Yasiel Puig just like runs through a wall and is never seen again,
Yeah.
and the possibility that Jock Peterson is not a center fielder, and there's still Carl Crawford and Andre Ethier is making $20 million to sit on the bench. Uh,
Well, they traded.
there's a lot. There's a lot
Traded
that you
Kemp, so
look. What?
they have a spot for ETH here. I mean, BP has in their latest the Bakota standings projected standings for 2015. BP gives the Dodgers 97 wins, and the next closest team is the Padres at 85. So that's a 12-win swing.
Yeah.
So you have to see the Padres being 6 wins better. Are the Padres a 91-win team, and the Dodgers as a 91-win team? Before you get, I could see the Dodgers winning 91. I have a hard time seeing the Padres win 91. And as you noted, it's an odd year, so the Giants aren't going to win 91.
Yeah.
The
And I feel like the context, and I think anybody listening to this is going to know this, but the nature of projection systems is to regress everything to the mean, and not to project people to do wild and crazy things. So I think it's worth noting that only 3 teams are projected even for 90 wins. There's the Dodgers at 97, there's the Nationals and the Angels at 91.
Yeah,
So there's a lot of good teams. There's good teams in baseball. There's the
97 is a
Cardinals and
great
whatever.
team.
But
Yeah,
so to see a 97 from a projection system, and in particular from a projection system that is not built to defy other projection systems and be wild and crazy, it takes that same approach as the others. It's striking to see 97. You think like, the Dodgers have built the kind of team that will cause newspaper writers in their season previews to project them for like 107 wins. And they could. I mean, they could win that. They
they
might.
actually could. I mean, yeah,
Probably. I think they're the. Yeah. If you're going to pick a team, if you're going to say, okay, you get one team, which is most likely to win 107. Yeah, that's probably the Dodgers.
I mean, if Kershaw gets hurt, then all bets are off.
Right.
Because he's the big, to me, he's the huge difference maker there. I mean, Greinke is an excellent pitcher, but after that, things get a little more normal.
Yeah,
But
yeah. If you knock Kershaw out, if you knock your superhuman, the best pitcher in baseball out, and you're down to your very good number two and your very good number three, Greinke and Rue, now bump up. Now you've got injury cases at 3 and 4, McCarthy
right.
and Anderson, instead of 4 and 5, and then you're looking to fill that last slot, and you're like, well, we've got a young guy, we've got Eric Bedard hanging around, we've got, maybe we could convert Kenley Jansen to a starter. You're playing those kinds of games when you knock out someone like a Kershaw.
And the only reason I brought that up is because Kershaw was hurt last year. I mean,
Right.
it actually has happened. It's not just like he's not utterly indestructible.
Therefore, it'll never happen again. I feel like is the lesson
I
we
hope
should take
not.
from
I hope
that.
not. I'm not a Dodgers fan, but he's a pleasure to watch. That guy.
Funny that he's a pleasure to watch, isn't it? Because he's such a goof on the mound. Like he's got such a ridiculous pitching motion,
Yeah, it's really
and
weird.
he's so sort of gawky and weird looking, and it's so adorable that he married his high school sweetheart. Um,
Yeah.
but he's just ridiculous and dominating, and yeah, there is nobody like him, and there hasn't been anybody like him. And what there've been pitchers as good as him, certainly, and you know we've in our lifetimes and in the lifetimes of nearly everybody around right now, we've seen Clemens and we've seen Pedro and we've seen
Right.
Randy Johnson, but they're also all four of them, counting Kershaw into there, are so stylistically different, that
Yeah.
it's not, it doesn't sort of take away that we've already seen sort of three all-time great pitchers very recently, to see yet another one, because he's so weird. None of those three had Kershaw's curveball.
If I were to give you the Dodgers, or you could take the Diamondbacks and the Rockies and combine them in any way you want and make one team out of them, which one would you take?
I guess is uh,
I'll tell you,
still the Dodgers,
I would take the
because
Dodgers too.
like between those two teams, who is the catcher? Do the Rockies have a catcher? Because Diamondbacks, like somewhat famously on the internet, don't have a catcher.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the Rockies are going to be starting Williams Rosario, who's a terrible catcher,
Yeah.
possibly a good hitter, and Nick Hundley, who's whatever.
Hmm.
The Diamondbacks got Pete O'Brien. I guess Pete O'Brien has some upside. But yeah, they're so the good players between those two teams are Goldschmidt, Tulowitzki, Arenado, uh, Carlos Gonzalez.
It was terrible last year, but yes.
Yeah. Um,
Maybe Yasmani.
Trumbo as a hitter, but you can't play him at first base because you got Goldschmidt on this combined team. I mean, they actually kind of match up well because, Tulowitzki and Arenado, like the Diamondbacks' third base and shortstop options are a little underwhelming. Owings has some upside, but they're underwhelming. So, you put those guys in there, and Morneau is Justin Morneau. Like maybe he's amazing again, but you have to take a lot of air out because of Colorado. Goldschmidt is legitimately amazing. And then you can put Yasmani Tomas in right field and Gonzalez in left field. You can actually build a decent team.
You don't have any pitching though.
The pitching is still a problem. I like De La Rosa and Chassin are fine, and I love LaTroy Hawkins. LaTroy Hawkins is the only player to appear in every Baseball Prospectus annual.
Is that true?
I think so. It might be the only pitcher. I apologize, because Jeter got his retirement comment this year. So Jeter and Hawkins, I think, are the two. And Hawkins, because he's playing this year, should get a comment next year. Jeter won't, although we should probably give him one. Jeter won't. So Hawkins, I think, as of next year, will be the sole survivor. I think he was also with Mariano.
When did Giambi come?
That's actually, Giambi's an interesting one. I wonder if Giambi. I want to say he came up in like '95.
That's right when Jeter came up.
Yeah, '95. He came up in '95, but as a minor leaguer, he may have been in before. I don't know. I wonder. I don't know about Giambi. I should look into. Oh well, I mean, I can look on the player page. Giambi appeared in '96, and that's the first annual, right? Yeah. So Giambi's been in all of them as
There you
well.
go. Is he
Um,
playing this year? Did he sign with the Indians?
I don't think he's signed yet, and I think theoretically he's still deciding, and at some point somebody's going to decide for him
Right.
whether
I
to
didn't think
play
he
or
had an offer.
coach.
Did someone make him an offer that's to be an actual player? I thought his only offer was to be a manager or a coach or something like that.
Yeah, I think that might be the case. I think maybe he's holding out hope. But I mean, what did he bat 20 times last year and got you know -4 hits? So yeah, actually that would be ideal. A manager needs to get fired, and Giambi needs to get hired as the new manager. That way he can appear in the book next year as a manager,
There you
and
go.
he will continue his run.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, he needs to. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Perfect.
Yeah, so I
Um,
think I think with all that, I think I'm still taking the Dodgers, which is kind of crazy, right? To combine two teams, and granted, they're two of the worst teams in baseball, along with the Phillies and really kind of the Phillies. I think everybody else has
the
moved up
Twins,
enough.
the Twins projected to win the same
Yeah, but
amount
the
as the
Twins have
Phillies, but
upside at least.
uh,
The Twins have the possibility of getting to mid-year and calling up young players who fall on their faces or who
are you saying Ryan Howard doesn't have any upside? Is that what you're saying?
what's that?
Are you saying Ryan Howard doesn't have any upside?
I think Ryan Howard has upside in the sense that he might smack us upside the head if he heard us talking about him like this. That was terrible. We've been doing this too long. We're down to two
He has
viewers. We had
upside.
five. Congrats to you too, who are still listening. Actually, you're probably not still listening. You probably just forgot to log out your computers. Um, but I think we've. Do you want to do quickly our minor league draft? I think we were gonna.
Sure, if you
Um,
want to, or
because
we
I
can
think
hold it over
we've.
till next week if you want.
No, no, no. Because then we'll hold it forever, and we'll do it next off season, and we need to get it on record
Okay.
for this season. So the concept of this is that I mean anybody who listens to Effectively Wild knows that Sam and Ben do this. They pick minor league. They draft minor league free agents. And and because they're minor league free agents, it's about you win if you get more playing time
Right.
for your players than the other guy. You don't really care how they perform because you don't expect anything out of minor league free agents. And so we're not going to adapt this. We're not going to whatever. We're just going to do it. We are just going to do the exact same draft that they did, and listeners can compare if we draft any of the same players that Sam and Ben did, or whatever. See how we do. But we are going to do this. I think we decided to do 5 rounds.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
think so.
and I don't I always get annoyed because they don't do a snake draft. I'm like, God damn it, do a snake draft. And I've actually told Sam this, and he just doesn't care. So in any event, I will be gracious though, and let you have the first pick.
Oh boy.
Yeah,
Um,
I will put the onus on you rather. It's actually not gracious at all.
I know it really isn't. I
I
was
will put
actually
you on the spot.
I was counting on the fact that you were going to pick first. All right, all right.
Too late.
So these are all minor league free agents that are still free agents, correct?
No, they can have signed. They
Okay.
just can't be on a 40-man roster currently.
Okay. Okay. Um, I'll take. It's between two guys. I'll take Landerton McDonk.
Who is he? Tell us a little about him. We should say. I mean, not to give like a scouting report, but just a little bit.
He's a third baseman. Some power, no real patience, but you never know when the light will turn on.
Is he signed?
But the Red Sox, yeah,
Red Sox. Oh, okay, yeah. Typical. What
yeah,
a homer.
I know.
Um, so I am gonna go with Sambin Milberg.
Okay,
Sambin is he's a pitcher. The A's have him. That's kind of probably a stupid pick on my part, but I'm a homer too. The A's have so much. Once if Jared Parker and AJ Griffin make it back, they're going to have a lot of depth in starting pitching, so that guys who aren't on the 40 man probably don't have a lot of shot of making an impact. But you never know, and you never know if things fall apart if they start trading players again and have room for someone like Sambin Milberg to make a real impact.
That's a good pick. I think with my second pick, I'm going to take Philtrum Scoom. He's a pitcher with the in the Rockies system. So you never know when the Rockies are just going to use all their pitchers, literally use them up, and they'll all just die, and they'll need to call up Philtrum Scoom.
My next pick is Stan Kowalski. He is a catcher for the Orioles. The Orioles obviously have a very good catcher in place, but he's also approaching free agency. So the Orioles are in a place where if things don't go quite as well as they've gone in the last couple of years, he could be a candidate to be moved. Plus, he had an injury last year, and it makes you wonder. So I'm going with Stan Kowalski as a potential backup catcher in July kind of situation for the Orioles.
I'm also going to take a backup catcher with my third pick, Gerald McFlab with the Giants.
You got a lot of Irishmen on your team. I'm noticing.
I made out a list of 10 guys, and these are for some reason I guess quality of players and the place where they're they are in their organizations, but yeah, I'm optimistic that McFlab may get the call up and may get some plate appearances. So here's hoping. Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to. This is the hard thing. You don't want to hope too much, right? Because hope involves just things falling apart for the guys ahead of them. Like somebody has to get hurt. Somebody has to for these guys to get a chance. You're rooting for the underdog. It's nice, but you're also inherently therefore rooting for the overdog to not make it.
Even if Buster Posey comes up, it's not like they'll call up McFlab and start him every day. I mean, he'll be the guy who sits on the bench until they get somebody better. In trade if Posey's really hurt, or he'll get maybe a start, or he'll come in, and catch the last couple innings of a blowout. I mean, he's not going to be a guy that's going to get a lot of playing time. But
right. Yeah. All right. Well, I am going with my third pick to go with Rangers pitcher by the name. Rangers pitcher. It's like you almost just think, okay, Rangers pitcher, that's a category I should go with, and pick the best guy that you find on the Rangers, not on the Rangers 40-man. And in that case, I think that's Jesus, who has a pretty good curveball from what I've read. So, yeah, Jesus, Rangers pitcher, to be their ninth starter when the five guys ahead of him get hurt this August.
Okay. I like how so far I can honestly say I don't think any of your guys were guys that I was going to pick.
Oh, really? I haven't stolen from your list yet.
No, not once.
Yeah, see, that's the funny thing about this. There's so many guys, and they're all basically the same, where they all get the same contract, and people aren't fighting over them. I guess it's and it's all about taste and personal idea about how things are going to go for teams. Yeah, weird.
Yeah. So this is a shortstop in the Braves system that I'll take with my fourth pick, Candido Delicatester. It's the kind of thing where maybe something will happen to Simmons, and I guess all of this is really rooting for injury, right? You're just hoping that I don't know, an anvil or a piano falls on somebody at the major league roster. Because there's just no way.
But on their legs, not death.
Oh yeah, not death. No, you don't need death. I mean, you need them to not, whoever the starter is, to not be able to walk ever, because that's the only way they call up Candido Delicatester.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Yeah.
I will say my next pick is kind of based more on underperformance, an underperformance based idea than anything else because the Brewers' shortstop situation, Gene Segura or Jean or Hun, or I don't know how his name is pronounced. Segura has not been as good as maybe people hoped, and they did acquire Luis Sardinas from Texas, which is an interesting move for them. But what I'm thinking could happen is that Segura could be so bad that he winds up not even on the major league roster. So this guy I don't think is going to be a starter. Sardinas would probably bump into the starter role. But I think Dilbert Benderspink, who is kind of their AAA shortstop. It's just a guy, but it's it's AAA shortstop could wind up being the utility man if Sardinas bumps up into that role. Benderspink can he can't really hit. He's not really much of a hitter. He is that sort of backup utility man. Skinny guy, got some speed, but he's not a great. He's not Billy Hamilton or anything like that. And really just kind of a slick glove type to play three infield positions, could theoretically play the outfield if it was needed. So yeah, Dilbert Benderspink is my fourth round pick.
This is tough. See, now they've got a couple guys that I'd like to grab right here because it's the last. This is the last round.
This is the last round.
This is it. There's Sunsun Truming, Bund Flund, but I think the guy I'm going to go with is he's Marlins relief pitching. You can't even call him a prospect. I mean, he's got some heat on his fastball. He doesn't have any idea where he's going to go. That's Triple Tino Fedris. So I think maybe there's a chance he can harness it and become like that like Giles on the Phillies, just a guy who sort of shows up late in life and happens to command the strike zone a little bit. So Triple Tino Fedris is going to be my last pick.
Did you really draft another Irishman?
Fedris?
Oh, it's not O? I thought I heard an O in front of...
Triple Tino is his first name.
Oh, the O is part of... Okay, so, yeah,
Yeah.
the Productive Outs guys make those jokes, right? They turn the Latino guys into Irish guys, whatever, by moving the
Right.
O. I misheard it, and I hadn't heard of him. That's the thing, I haven't even heard of half of your picks, actually,
Yeah.
because I didn't do a ton of research.
Right.
I'm not committed enough.
So are you gonna grab Bund Flund?
No, my final pick actually, and this is weird because the Red Sox have Dustin Pedroia at second base, and they've got depth. But I think he's an interesting player. This one's more of a quality of player might surprise kind of situation. So I am going with Cat Morey, who is a Red Sox. I mean, he's kind of second base only. He doesn't really have the arm for the left side of the infield. But I think Morey can hit a little, and he's got a glove, so he owns one. I mean, like
Right.
he's got his own. Like he didn't have to ask the team to provide him one.
Does he have two? Does he have two?
He doesn't. That's the thing. So that's really what could, by August his glove might be just sort of worn through, and he might
Yeah,
not,
you kind of hope it doesn't break.
So
right?
if he's going to get a break, it's going to have to be in the early part of the year. So yeah, that's Cat Morey closing out our minor league draft. So we will keep track of those, or the listeners can. I don't care.
Right.
Listeners can start a blog to talk about how awesome we are, the way they did with Texas Wild, and keep track of all that. But in any event, yeah, we'll tote up the total sort of plate appearances and innings or total batters faced or whatever at the end of the year and see who won. I am pretty confident about Jesus. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling good about it.
I can't claim to be confident about any of my picks, but we'll see. We'll see where things end up. I'm excited to see what happens. It's sort of fun to do stuff like this because then you get to follow along. And anyway, but is that it? Are we done?
Yeah, I think speaking of seeing where things have ended up, I think we see where this podcast has ended up, and that is here. at this
Yeah.
place.
Okay.
So it has. I think this went a little smoother. I think I stuttered a little less because Craig Goldstein wasn't yelling at me not to. And we did a good draft, and we picked the Dodgers. We went really out on a goddamn limb, is what we did, and picked the Dodgers to win the West. And that was our episode. Parting shots, Mr. Corey.
Yeah, I don't know if I would pick the Diamond Rockies to win in 75 games.
I would pick the Rocky Backs, though.
Would you?
Yeah, the Rocky Backs.
I would.
Doesn't that sound like a type of gorilla? It's a Rocky
It
Back
does.
gorilla.
It does. Yeah. And Diamond Rockies is almost redundant.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, isn't a Diamond Rock?
Is it a diamond Rocky, or is it another kind of Rocky, or is it another kind of diamond? It's a diamond minerally.
Either way, they suck shit. Is the point?
Okay. Happy podcast, and we will talk to you all presumably next week. My schedule hopefully will cooperate, and Matt's hopefully will as well. And maybe he can maybe he can let a mascot in next week. The listeners will have to speak on that and sign a petition or something to let the children podcast.